really quick, Philippians 4, 6, and 7. It says, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Jesus Christ." You can all be seated. I just want to talk for a second about something we learned this week. We learned here in Hampton Roads, and that's that when it's time for a storm, it's time for a storm. I love Connie Thomas. I know she's not here tonight, so I can talk about her. I love her. I've known her since she was a baby. But every November, we get at odds with each other. And that lasts for a few months because during the winter season, I'm looking at the sky hoping for snow. And Connie's on her knees somewhere praying that we don't see a flake. So this is a battle that goes on every year, every winter. But one thing that we both know is that it doesn't matter how much we wish, hope, and pray, the weather is going to do what the weather is going to do. We don't really get to decide the weather, but what we do get to decide is what we'll do when the storm comes. I saw Connie playing in the snow. So when the storm comes for Connie, even though she didn't want it, how she dealt with it was pretty good. She's going to make the most of the storms when they come. I learned an interesting thing about buffalo. Buffalo, unlike most animals and most humans, when a storm comes, when a blizzard comes, a really, really severe storm, they don't run from it. They find it, they navigate to it, and they run straight into it. There's a reason that they do that, and the reason is they know instinctively that if they run straight into it, they'll get through it faster, and they'll spend less time in the brunt of it. If they sat down somewhere and cried about it, or if they wondered why is this storm coming, or even if they ran the other way, which is what cows actually do. Cows run away, and cows end up, in the end, spending more time in the harshest part of the storm than the buffalo do, because the buffalo just says, here it is, and they run into it. Let's just get through this. They don't just react to it when a storm comes. They have intention about how they deal with it, and they actively seek to get through it, to minimize their time in it. We can say, yeah, but buffalo were made for the storms, and that's true, they were. God made them to be able to deal with the conditions they were going to face. They have an extremely thick coat. They can withstand temperatures up to negative 40 degrees. They have big heads that they can use to push the snow aside and burrow for food. So God gave them what they need to deal with the conditions they'll face. But when they're running through the storm, the blizzard, they still get snow in their eyes. They still get hungry. They're probably tired. They still face the challenges of being in a storm. They were built to survive the storm, but so were we. The same God that equipped the buffalo to be able to run through a blizzard gave us what we need to be able to run through whatever storms that we're going to face. Yeah, they're uncomfortable, but they're not afraid. When they run through the storms, they know instinctively one thing: it's going to end. They're going to run through it, and it's going to end. We all know Ecclesiastes 3, the first several verses. To everything there's a season, and there's a purpose to everything under heaven. There's a time to be born, a time to die, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance. There's a time for all of it, and there's a time for storms. It's meant to be that way. It was designed that way. It's part of the plan, but that's okay, because we know if there's a storm coming, that it's time. It's time for this storm. But there's also going to come a time for laughter. There's going to come a time for dancing. There's time for the buffalo to lounge on the green grass. And then there's time for them to run through the blizzards covered in ice. Whatever conditions they face and whatever conditions we face, it's temporary. There's a saying, it's said everywhere. Every country claims it. Iceland claims it. Maine isn't a country, but Maine claims it. If you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes. If you don't like your current situation, if you don't like your current circumstance, just wait. If you're in a storm, take a lesson from the buffalo and don't react to it emotionally, but actively navigate it. Actively and with purpose navigate it. Face it head on so that you can get through it faster. And along the way, pick up some lessons that can only be learned when it's time for a storm. We're built to survive the storms, but that doesn't mean that they won't be uncomfortable. And if you're in a storm, there's a reason for it. It's time for it. But the storm isn't permanent. So just keep walking and know that you've been equipped to handle whatever it is that you'll face, and just keep walking until you get to the other side of it.